Yo, what's up, guys? I'm back. Hey, let's talk a little bit about the tariffs that's going on. Hope everybody's doing well. So, the tariffs meltdown, right? It's basically just people finally noticing that how power works. You know, everybody's pretending this is some brand new moral crisis, like we just discovered politics has incentives and the government likes money. The court ruled on authority, not economics. It didn't declare tariffs as evil. It said you don't get to use that lever that way. So the adult response is, okay, what levers do we actually have? And Trump, for better or worse, is doing the one thing that most of these politicians refuse to do, and that's use the levers we have to stop getting played. Because that's what this is. The U.S. has been the world's consumer of last resort, the global mall where everybody sells and then they lecture us about free trade while running their own little maze of tariffs, VAT schemes, industrial subsidies, currency games, and regulations that magically only block our exports. Free trade apparently means they protect their industries as strategic. We call it market efficiency while our towns rot. Then we import the same product back at 3 times the cost and pretend that that's progress. This is why tariffs keep coming back. Not because they're cute, because the alternative has been national scale doormat policy with a Harvard accent. The court didn't kill tariffs, it killed a shortcut. So let's be crystal clear about it. The Supreme Court ruling didn't outlaw tariffs. It just narrowed the president's ability to declare emergency and start taxing the planet under the IEPA. That's not anti-worker, that's constitutional plumbing, okay? So when the critics screech, he's defying the courts. No, he's doing what every competent operator does when a route is blocked. He reroutes. Section 122 exists. The White House literally cited it as authority for a temporary import surcharge. You can dislike it, but don't call it illegal just because it makes you uncomfortable. And honestly, the defying narrative is mostly theater for people who want the vibe of enforcement without the inconvenience of enforcement. If you want Congress to own tariffs, cool. Then Congress should stop hiding under the bed every time trade gets hard. So this is why Trump's 15% move actually makes sense, even if it's not comfortable. A 15% across the board tariff is basically Trump saying, we're done pretending that we're the only country that has to play by the fantasy version of the rules. So here's the pro-Trump logic that the professional hand-wringers refuse to say out loud. Number one, leverage is the only language that trade partners respect. Trade negotiations are not group therapy. They're not about feelings. They're about pain thresholds. A baseline tariff forces other countries to show their cards. Do they want access to the U.S. consumer or not? Yeah, number two, a tariff is a tax, yes, but it's also a filter. It changes the math. It makes import everything forever less automatic. It nudges supply chains away from the lowest wage, highest subsidy, least transparent sources, and toward domestic or friend-shored production. You don't get resilience by chanting globalization into a candle. Number three, Section 122 being temporary is the point. It's a pressure burst, a deadline, a forcing function. It's basically, we're doing this now, make a deal, fix the imbalance, or enjoy the surcharge, sucker. And for everyone crying, uncertainty, spare me. The world has been uncertainty for years. The only difference is now the uncertainty shows up in boardrooms instead of only in Americans' paychecks. But tariffs raise prices. Yes, and so does being weak. Here's where I'm not going to insult your intelligence. Tariffs can raise prices. They can land partly on the U.S. firms and consumers. I get that. There's research showing the burden can fall heavily at home depending on the conditions and responses. I understand. But let's now ask the real question that never gets asked on the old boob tube. What's the price of not having an industrial base? What's the price of supply chains that snap every time a shipping lane coughs? What's the price of relying on strategic rivals for components you can't replace? People act like the only cost that matters is the checkout receipt. Meanwhile, we've been quietly paying in. Hollowed out manufacturing towns, lost technical skills, dependency, and the slow motion auctioning of national leverage. That bill is bigger than a 15% surcharge. It just doesn't show up on one tidy receipt, so the spreadsheet class pretends that it's not real. The trade deficit problem isn't about vibes, it's receipts. The U.S. goods trade deficit with China was about $295.5 billion in 2024. That's not a moral judgment, it's a scoreboard. And yes, trade deficits aren't automatically bad in every economy textbook scenario. Cool. Economy textbooks also assume frictionless markets and rational actors. We can't even merge properly on a highway, but sure, let's build policy on perfect world assumptions. The point is persistent. Massive deficits paired with offshoring and strategic dependency are a national security issue, whether the commentariat likes it or not. Tariffs also do something nobody wants to admit. They raise revenue. Customs duties have climbed into real money again. By the fiscal year 2025, customs duties were up 3.7% of total federal revenue, according to the USA Facts, okay? And reporting around this latest legal mess says enormous tariff revenue is now tangled up in uncertainty and potential refunds depending on what survives. So when people say tariffs are just a tax, the honest answer is yes, and? We tax work, we tax savings, we tax businesses, we tax your house even after you own it. The government is basically a subscription service that you can't cancel. At least tariffs are one of the few taxes that can be aimed outward while also reshaping incentives. The real hypocrisy that everyone loves, executive power until it's used for this. When executive agencies regulate entire industries into the dirt, it's expertise. When presidents spend money like a drunken sailor with a platinum card, it's leadership. When trade policy is used to punish your enemy or reward your ally, it's strategy. But when the U.S. finally says, our market access isn't free anymore, suddenly everyone becomes James Madison, clutching the Constitution like they just discovered it in the drawer. The court said, use the right tool. Trump said, fine, here's another tool. That's not lawlessness, that's adaptation. The Supreme Court drew a boundary on one legal justification. That Trump is using a different statute explicitly built for temporary import surcharges up to 15%. The policy goal is leverage and rebalancing, like I said before, not vibes. The trade system has not been symmetrical for decades, and pretending it has cost the U.S. strategic capacity. You can oppose it on economic grounds, fine. You can argue elasticity, pass-through, retaliation, sector impacts, distribution effects. That's real debate. But the lazy take, the fake smart take is tariffs are bad because tariffs are bad. And Trump is defying the court because I don't like him, while ignoring the actual legal mechanism and the actual imbalance. This is a fight over who gets to say no. This is what tariffs really are. A national no. No, you don't get unlimited access to the U.S. market while you block ours. No, you don't get to hollow out our production and call it efficiency. No, you don't get to treat the American consumer like a global charity. Trump's 15% move is blunt, yes. It's also legible. It's the first time in forever the United States trade policy looks like it was written by someone who remembers what a factory is and doesn't apologize for wanting the country to make things again. And if the price of sovereignty is a little discomfort, well, maybe that's better than the comfortable path that somehow always ends with American pain and everyone else preaching. That's all I got for today. Hope you all are doing good. God bless each and every one of you. Christ is King. Later, Gators.